Welcome back to another episode of the DFS Express presented by Loudmouth MMA and MMAtoday.com. I am your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper, here to talk UFC Belem. The main event is Machida versus Eric Anders. This is your first time listening or watching the Express. We're going to run through every fight on this card, DraftKings specific picks, which is going to come up a few times. So it's where my fight pick could differentiate from who I think is the better DraftKings play. Before I get into that, please give me a follow on Twitter at the DFS Sniper. Also, subscribe to my YouTube page, and make sure if you are listening to this episode on the Loudmouth MMA podcast channel to subscribe, give us a review. All the support on all those different platforms is greatly appreciated. Let's get to the fights. Eric Anders is the favorite in the main event, 8,900 against Machida, 7,300. You know, back in Machida's prime, this would be a matchup made for him. He's a counter striker, and Anders is always pressuring forward. The problem is Machida is in his late 30s. His chin appears to be gone, and Anders is a freak athlete. Machida also is coming off a knockout loss. A few months ago, he wanted to take more time off. My suspicion is the UFC threw money at him because they needed a main event for this card. Anders, you would think he's going to get a first-round knockout. Big, strong guy. That chin of Machida, as I mentioned, a lot of upside there. Machida, it's interesting because if he's anything like the Machida of old, he's able to counter-strike, circle off. He's clearly in play. I just don't think I trust his chin. Anders is going to be also popular, so I think he's the better play because he has a higher upside. And he won't kill your cash game lineups. Machida is a good tournament option, but if I'm picking between the two, who's the better play, I'm going to take Eric Anders at 8,900. Next up, we got John Dodson and Pedro Munhoz. 8,500 for Dodson, 7.7K for Munhoz. I don't think Munhoz is very good. I've been saying it since the Stasiak fight. He's got a lot of hype behind him. I know he's ranked number 10. John Dodson, he fights close is the issue here. I don't like either of these guys for DraftKings. I'm picking Dodson to win the fight because I think he's able to he's got good counter wrestling. He was a college wrestler. Obviously crazy speed, not a lot of power at this division. I think he's going to be able to kind of pick apart Dodson for a decision, but he won't score very highly, whereas Munhoz's only path to victory is the submission. And he would score relatively highly, could catch a choke. So I think he's the better GPP play only because, so I'm picking Dodson to win the fight, but I don't think even in a win he's going to score very highly. So Dodson's the pick to win. Munhoz probably the better DraftKings play, mostly in tournaments. Valentina Shevchenko, 9,600 against Priscilla Kakiora. I'm sure I butchered that name. Who's 6.6K. Shevchenko's going to win the fight. She's minus 900. She can probably do whatever she wants. But can she pay off that salary? 9.6 is a lot to pay off, especially for a women's flyweight fight. I'm going to say Priscilla is the better play on DraftKings only because at that crazy cheap salary of 6.6K, you can then roster, 4 to 5 favorites pretty comfortably. She opens up a lot of salary, especially in cash games. So again, back-to-back fight. Shevchenko's the pick to win. I like the price savings of Priscilla, using her as a punt and loading up on some more comfortable favorites. Michelle Tractor Prazeres, 8,600 against Desmond Green, 7,600. This is the fight I've been flipping back and forth with all week. Should be a grappling match. Just last night we recorded the Loudmouth MMA pod, and I swung myself towards Desmond Green. Just because of the cardio, I think Prazeres could gas out. Prazeres is just so damn strong, and if he wins, he's going to score really highly. He scores over 100 points in each of his last 3 wins. I'm going to go back here and pick Prazeres. I think he's going to be able to just throw Green around, even though Green is a good wrestler, showed good counter wrestling against Rustab Khabilov. It's just, Prazeres is just too big, too powerful, and 8,600 with a 100-point upside. He's the better DraftKings play. Marcelo Golm, 8,700. Tim Johnson, 7,500. We are hurting for dogs on this card, but Tim Johnson is one that I like. Marcelo Golm is 6-0. He's had one fight in the UFC, one fight in a legit promotion. He was in a weird Brazilian promotion before that, and he beat Christian Colombo in the UFC, who's not any good. Golm, I know he got knocked out last time against Albini. Albini's a good striker. I know he didn't look great against Arlovsky. It's just there's levels to this, and this Tim Johnson should not be an underdog at 7,500. I think he's going to be able to press Gom up against the cage, grind him out. He's grinded out victories against better guys. I'm not in the hype train for Marcelo Gom. Tim Johnson's my upset pick at 7,500. Thiago Santos, 9,200 against Anthony Smith, 7,000. I'll take Thiago Santos. He is just a killer. He could be in title contention if he didn't get choked out against Eric Spicely. His only other loss recently is to Gegard Mousasi. Dude's just a monster. Both of these guys hit hard. Smith could be a tournament play, but he's been winning fights that he's been losing up until the third round. He was losing against Hector Lombard. He was losing against Andrew Sanchez. Thiago Santos is not going to let him off the hook. I think Santos gets a quick finish. He's expensive, but still one of my favorite plays at 9,200. Tim Means, 8,800 against Sergio Moraes, 7,400. A little bit of bias here because I like Tim Means as a person. I think he's an okay fighter, but I think overall he's really overhyped. People really love him. His lines get inflated. He's over a minus 200 favorite. And 8,800, I think the price is not right. Sergio Moraes, though, is also just an okay fighter. He got knocked out against Kamaru Usman last time. He's got really good ground game that we haven't seen a lot of, so I'm going to pick Moraes here and hoping he goes back to that ground game where he should have the advantage against Means. What I am worried about is Moraes trying to close the distance and some of those nasty Tim Means elbows. Overall, I just think the line and pricing is wrong because the public loves Tim Means. So with that, I'll take Sergio Moraes as the better DraftKings play at 7,400. Alan Patrick, 9,000. Damir Hadzovic, 7,200. I don't think Hadzovic is any good. He was losing against Marcin Held before he got a third-round knockout, catching Held coming in for the takedown. Other than that, though, he really seems unable to stop takedowns. That's what Patrick does. He's going to lay on the guy. I don't know how highly he'll score, but should be a grappling-based win. And I'm taking Alan Patrick at 9,000 as the better play. Marlon Vera, 8,300. Douglas Silva, Dandridge, 7,900. I really hate the mid-range this week. This fight and the next one, they're not pretty for DraftKings. I'm going to take Douglas Silva, Dandridge here as the better play because he's a little cheaper. Marlon Vera has been reliant on catching subs to win fights. He looked okay against John Lineker. Vera is younger and improving all the time. It's a toss-up fight for me. It's one of those, usually not wishy-washy. I'll take the price savings for Silva Dandridge, but honestly, neither one of these guys interest me on DraftKings. Joe Soto, 8,200. Yuri Alcantara, 8,000. Yuri has looked really, really bad. A lot of fights. He's I believe, in his mid to late 30s, like 40-something professional fights. Joe Soto got caught in a calf slicer against Brett Johns. He's the more proven commodity to me. I never know which Yuri is going to show up. Joe Soto, I think, could catch a sub here. I think he's a little more technical on the feet. Alcantara may be a little faster and powerful, but Soto, I think, is the better technical striker. Could catch Yuri in a sub. I'll take Joe Soto at 8,200, but again, another guy, this mid-range I'm not super interested in. Davison Figueiredo, 8,400 against Joseph Morales, 7,800. I think Morales is going to be one of the more popular dog plays. I'm not quite there because I'm not sure he can stop the takedowns of Davison here. Both these guys are undefeated. Someone's going to get their first loss. Figueiredo probably lost his last fight against Jared Brooks, but he got the judge's nod. I'm not too worried about it in the matchup, though, because Brooks does what Figueiredo does just better. He's a better wrestler. I don't think Morales will be able to stop the wrestling of Figueiredo. I think he gets a decision win, and for me, he's the better play at 8,400. Polyana Viana is 9,100 against Maya Stevenson, 7,100. Stevenson should not be in the UFC. My hunch is she is getting the shot because she is Joe Stevenson's wife. Some name value. Maybe they needed somebody. Viana has fought Jungle Fight. She looks like a solid prospect. 9,100 is a lot, but Stevenson is just really, really bad. If you want to punt, I would pay 500 less for Priscilla Caquiera, whose name I butchered again for the second time in this episode. Viana should just be able to outclass Stevenson wherever the fight goes, so she's the better DraftKings play. Okay, now jumping over to DraftKings, as we do every week, I'm going to build a tournament lineup. These are high risk, high reward, looking for big points, not just skating by on a decision. I'm going to sort by salary this week. They usually do. So as I mentioned in the episode, I don't like the mid-range. Alcantara, Soto, Vera, Silva, D'Andrade don't really interest me, so that immediately leads us to a stars and scrubs type construction. I think Santos is going to get a finish early, so I'll lock him in, even though he's a little expensive. Treek, Anders, I really think the chin of Machida is gone. In cash games, I could stack this fight, but for tournaments, I'm going to look for the first round knockout here and take Eric Anders. The two dogs I had mentioned in this episode are Tim Johnson at 75. Let's go ahead and put him in. And Sergio Moraes, I also think is a good tournament play because, as I had mentioned, Tim Means is always so damn popular. You'll get a bit of leverage here, some game theory. I don't think Moraes will be heavily owned. And if this fight goes to the ground, he has the advantage there. So I'll put him in for 7,400. Gives us two fighters at 8,500 a pop. That's a little tight. I really wanted to try and avoid the mid-range. That's why, as you can see, as I mentioned a few times, Priscilla is a really interesting option for cash games because then instead of Moraes, you put in Priscilla and then you can get Alan Patrick and Prajeris more comfortably. I'll put in Prajeris at 8,600 and the grappling upside of Figueiredo, who I also don't think will be very popular. I know it's right above that mid-range. It's not terribly interesting, but it fits for this lineup, and it's not a bad tournament play. So that's the lineup we built this episode: Santos, Anders, Johnson, Moraes, Prajeris, and Figueiredo. That's what I have for you guys this week. Again, thank you for watching and listening. Make sure and follow me on Twitter, subscribe to my YouTube page, and make sure you are following at Loudmouth MMA and at MMA Today News as well. Good luck in your contest. I will see you next week.